You ever have one of those days where the world comes at you all at once? No warning, no chance to catch your breath, and suddenly, everything you are, everything you stand for, gets put to the test right out in the open? That's how it started for me. A day so ordinary it might as well have faded into the background, until it snapped into focus like a camera, flashed the second Officer Jackson's cruiser, cut off my escape under that scorching sun. I just finished a 6-hour marathon in Ore, heart still racing with the thrill of saving a life, and all I wanted was to let my bones meld into the car seat and drift home. Instead, I got sirens, suspicion, and the heavy stare of a cop who'd already decided who I was before he ever saw my credentials. Yeah, that happened. You know what I mean? I barely got the engine off before Jackson was pounding across the pavement, flashlight out in daylight, like he was itching for a reason. License and registration. He didn't even ask, so much as a cue's voice cold, clipped, like maybe saving lives didn't buy you a second of benefit of the doubt. My hands shook as I reached for my wallet, adrenaline burning through the exhaustion, mind still flickering back to the steady beeps of the heart monitor in the orso, different from the siren's shrill edge now. I handed over my papers, caught my reflection in the car window wide-eyed, jaw locked, like I was prepping for another kind of operation. His light landed on the MD after my name. Expired, he muttered, slow and deliberate. Only it wasn't, and we both knew it. For a second, the hospital doors slid open behind new white coats clustered together, curiosity mixing with concern, and Maria, the nurse who'd just handed off my last case, stepped forward, voice gentle but unflinching. "Officer, Dr. Bennett just saved a life. Our records are up to date." Jackson's posture went rigid, but I felt the crowd on my side, every breath thick with tension and expectation. I remembered what my dad always said: choose your words like you choose your bat lasso. I locked eyes with Jackson, held my ground, and told him, "I've done everything by the book." He tried to brush past Maria's intervention, but the look in his eyes had shifted, just for a heartbeat, like maybe he realized this wasn't going to go the way he'd planned. Eventually, he spat out, "You're free to go," but not without that brittle edge in his voice, the kind that wants you to know you only won because he let you. As I opened my door, he added, "Watch your speed next time." I paused, really looked at him, and let it hang in the air. "Officer, it's not speed that concerns me. It's bias." His face flickered between defiance and something almost like shame. But he walked off, tires screeching as he pulled away, leaving a wake of dust and eyes and a story nobody would forget. Back in the hospital, I tried to lose myself in the rhythm of my work pagers buzzing, voices calling, the hum of fluorescent lights. But the echo of that confrontation followed me down every hallway. And when Trauma Bay 2 called, when a man's life hung in the balance, I pushed everything else down, let my hands do what they were trained for. The team moved around me, Maria at my side, Dr. Ruiz giving clipped instructions, the chaos of blood and alarms, and in the middle of it, I found that place where everything narrows to what matters. Needle in, blood drains, chest rises, color returns. Relief, gratitude, and a reminder this is why I stand up. Because moments like this, they matter more than anybody's opinion or suspicion. But life never just gives you the win, right? As soon as the adrenaline wore off, Maria slipped me my credentials with a word of warning. Jackson had filed a report, suspicious behavior, unsubstantiated but enough to trigger HR. I felt that old anger and fear creep in, but I told her, "I'll be ready." Then Dr. Patel, the chief medical officer, found me. "We saw the footage," he said, and suddenly I realized the whole thing had been caught on security cameras. "We're filing a complaint," he added, "and you have our full support." For the first time that day, the weight on my chest eased. I wasn't alone. But this story isn't just about one bad moment or one lucky escape. It's about what happens after the ripples spread. Next thing I know, I'm invited to speak at a health equity summit. City council members, community activists, hospital brass, all gathered under one roof. I stood at the podium, voice steadier than I felt, and laid it out. Yesterday, I was stopped by a police officer simply because of who I am and what I look like in the neighborhood I serve every day. I saw Jackson out in the crowd, arms crossed, jaw tight. Do we want our protectors to reflect our highest ideals or our worst fears? The applause was thunderous, but what mattered more were the questions that followed, the steps the room agreed to take: a joint task force, pilot training, anonymous reporting. Afterward, Maria pressed a cup of tea into my hands. They want you on a panel next month. I smiled. We're all in demand if we want change. And when I walked into the East Side Community Clinic that afternoon, a place built on the promise of care for everyone, funded by the grant we fought for, I saw the real fruits of what we'd started. Mrs. Thompson, who hadn't seen a doctor in years, gripped my hand with relief. Mr. Alvarez, terrified by his blood pressure, left with hope. Every face, every story, wove together into a tapestry bigger than any single case or headline. But change never comes easy. Just as the dust started to settle, Maria burst into a community town hall with a new complaint, this time from Jackson's supervisor, a civil suit for defamation and emotional distress. Gasps swept the room, but I stood my ground. We will address this in court with evidence and truth. But we won't let threats derail our progress. The crowd support was overwhelming. Council members, officers, teenagers, everyone weighed in. And as we hashed out next steps, Jackson's union filed for mediation instead of trial. We met across a polished table, lawyers flanking both sides. After hours of negotiation, Jackson finally apologized publicly, acknowledging the bias and its impact. We signed a joint statement of mutual respect and agreed on a department-wide training program, with me on the oversight board. That's where the twist came in. The very officer who started all this became part of the solution, attending bias workshops, sharing his own story, admitting where he'd been wrong. I watched the other officers, Lee, Ramirez, Hayes, transform through those sessions, learning to balance caution with empathy, suspicion with understanding. One day, during a simulated drill, Jackson showed up, this time as a participant, not a threat. And when a real call came, a boy named Malik in respiratory distress, Jackson was there, helping with the oxygen, working side by side as we stabilized Malik until EMS arrived. That night on the porch, Jackson thanked me by name. "We're in this together," he said. "Partners in a new chapter." From there, the movement grew. The city council passed an ordinance requiring joint training, emergency medical supplies in every patrol car, and ongoing reviews led by hospital and police together. We tested it at the farmers' market, of a mass casualty drill with volunteers, smoke, chaos, radios. The results spoke for themselves. 5-minute average response, 0 critical errors. Word spread, other cities reached out, and the state health department called. Could we take this statewide? And sometimes the most cinematic moments aren't when the music swells or the camera pans out, but when you're alone in your office, reading messages from families who now feel safe calling 911, or when a detective slips you a note that just says, "Thank you for showing us the way." That's when you realize, one heartbeat at a time, you're changing the world. Maybe you're wondering, does it last? Or is this just another story that ends when the credits roll? I don't know, honestly. There are always new battles, more skeptics, more nights where fear and doubt feel heavier than hope. But every morning, as the city wakes and my pager buzzes, I remember why I started. Not for the headlines, not for the victories, but for the chance that one act of courage in a sun-baked curb, in a packed council chamber, or in a classroom with scared kids can spark something bigger. So tell me, where do you stand on justice and accountability? Drop your thoughts below, because if we don't talk about it, if we don't show up, nothing ever changes. And as for me, I'll keep moving forward, one heartbeat at a time.